My reflection is scaring me. Unknown author. I feel silly even writing this. Maybe Thomas is right, and I am overworking myself and just need a weekend away. But I am completely freaking out. I feel like I am the crazy homeless man, grabbing at strangers, yelling about the end of the world. I thought maybe if I wrote this down, I'll find a logical explanation for this irrational fear. And it really is just that. Irrational. My reflection is scaring me. There, I said it. The crazy is out. Where do I start? How do I even start to put into words what has been driving me and Thomas crazy for the last few months? I guess it started when I caught my eye in the bathroom mirror one morning. Not unusual to catch your reflection's eye. In fact, it is preferred to look up and have your reflection be looking back at you. But there was something off about it. Her face was exactly like mine, except that I could swear there was shock in her eyes. Okay, that does sound crazy, but trust me, I know my face, and I could tell that the emotion in her eyes was not reflecting mine. I brushed it off as crazy, of course, but for the remainder of the day, whenever I went past a reflective surface, I could swear I could see horror in her eyes. The next day, there were dark circles under her eyes. I slept well. She clearly hadn't. I asked Thomas and some girlfriends at work. Can't trust your fiancé to see dark circles. And everyone assured me that I didn't have dark circles. But she did. She was always watching me, her eyes glaring at me from a dark train window or even a shiny spoon. You don't realize how many things are reflective until your reflection glares at you. One time, I smiled at myself in the mirror, hoping that the dark hate would vanish from her eyes, and couldn't help to let out a yelp. I have never seen a more sinister smile in my life. Her eyes burning with anger, the corners of her mouth curled to expose her teeth, normal teeth, like a supervillain. She always mimics me, but I have an uncomfortable expectation in the pit of my stomach that one morning her movements will be different to mine. I sometimes jump with a little yelp, just because she is still perfectly mimicking me. I guess that's when the nightmare started. I dreamt that I go to the bathroom and no one is there. I dream that her arms suddenly grab through the mirror, her hands clasping closed around my neck. I dream that I go back to bed, and she's in our bed. I dream that I wake up in a cold mirror world and am forced to watch her live my life, forced to mimic her every movement. I avoid my reflection now. I don't want to see her. I don't want to look into her eyes anymore. Thomas thinks I'm crazy. I don't know. Maybe I am. But those eyes. Today, after weeks of not sleeping well, and bruise-like dark circles under my eyes, she looked rested. Her eyes looked different. My reflection should look like me. My reflection should look dead tired and terrified. Why is she looking so happy? What do you guys think? Am I losing my mind? Something Has My Voice, written by the Prowler. There's something in this house that has my voice. I find myself hiding in the living room closet with my son and wife, not believing what I'm seeing. It started just 2 hours earlier when I was in the kitchen making the children a snack. Yes, you heard right. I said children. I had 2 at the time. I finished in the kitchen and stood at the bottom of the stairs and called the children to come down. I then went back in to get their plates and set them on the kitchen table. When I turned around, though, I was greeted by my son running in, frightened, saying someone was in their closet and it sounded like me. My son said he knew it wasn't me because he saw me at the bottom of the stairs, telling them to come get their food. But my daughter, my poor daughter, didn't know that, and my son said he saw her go in, even though he told her not to. I didn't believe him at first. I thought he was joking. But before I could say anything, I heard her scream. My heart dropped. I grabbed my son's hand, and as we headed out into the living room to go get my daughter, I heard a wet thud hit the floor. It was my daughter. My poor baby girl's mutilated corpse was staring back at us with her lifeless eyes. I stood there in complete shock. My son started screaming. Then I heard it. My voice, coming from my children's room upstairs, and it was calling my son's name, followed by an unnerving growl. I felt my son's hand tremble in mine. I looked down at him and told him everything was going to be okay. We heard the closet door from my children's room slam open, upstairs, and then shuffling towards the door. My son began to cry, so I picked him up and we hid in the living room closet. We stood there listening to whatever was upstairs with my voice move and thrash about. What was it? A beast? Some killer maniac? I don't believe in monsters or spirits or whatever supernatural bullshit is out there. It has to just be some madman up there of flesh and bone. And when the time's right, I'm going to jump out and kill the motherfucker. Me and my son continued to stand there, waiting. After about 15 minutes or so of hiding in the closet, I heard the garage door open and my heart stopped. My wife was home. I had to save her before that bastard got a hold of her. She walked through the front door and shouted, "Honey, I'm home. Where's everyone at?" I then heard that thing with my voice answer her. "I'm upstairs, honey. I have a surprise for you. Come get it." She started towards the stairs, asking aloud, "What's with the red all over the carpets?" But before she could take a step, I jumped out and pulled her into the closet. She was in complete shock and said, "How was I down here when she just heard me upstairs?" I told her that wasn't me. I explained everything that happened and had to watch her reaction when I told her that our daughter was dead. She then held and consoled our son as we waited. After that, a sad string of unfortunate events transpired. The doorbell rang not long after. It was a delivery, and it needed a signature. I had then remembered I was expecting a very expensive piece of sports memorabilia today. As the delivery man knocked a second time, the thing upstairs made its way down. My God, I thought, I have to get this guy out of here before it's too late. But there was nothing I could do. It was downstairs, and we finally saw what it looked like. It was human-shaped and was built like me, but wasn't complete. I can't explain it. The thing was almost transparent, maybe a shade darker. Was it a ghost or a poltergeist? I don't think so, but whatever this was, it was mimicking me. It opened the door and dragged the poor bastard inside and ripped his throat out, right in the living room. Sadly, I wish I could say that was the last death, but it was not. Person after person who knocked on our door became a hot meal of some sort, from the electrician to the furniture delivery man and the dishwasher repairman. They all died horrifically. I looked over at my wife, side-eyed, and she smart-assedly replied, "It's not my fault. I wanted to get everything out of the way today, and how was I supposed to know that there would be a killer wannabe you traipsing around here, killing people left and right?" Just then a knock. I looked at my wife again and said, "Who is it now?" She shrugged her shoulders at first, but then her eyes widened. Before she could answer, the voice on the other side of the door spoke. "It's me. Grandma's here, and I brought presents." Holy shit, it's my mother-in-law. I shrugged my shoulders and looked at my wife and said, "Oh well, honey, she's about to get her ass eaten. There's nothing we could do. Our home is turning into a human buffet, and we're trapped. Please, don't knock on the door at 1333 Moss Grove Lane, or you might be next on the menu." Ecole De Miroirs. Author unknown. This is no ordinary school. Here, we have no teachers. We are our own teachers. Lessons are random and spontaneous. We must perfectly mimic the person we are assigned to. Action for action. Failure is not tolerated. If we fail, we are exterminated. When we are exterminated, the person we're assigned to is killed off as well. Oh well. C'est la vie. Hide and seek. Author unknown. 5, 4, 3. Chrissy had heard the little boy's voice trail off as she sat down into the closet and covered herself with some discarded clothes. For the past few months, she had been babysitting Tyler, a 7-year-old who lived down the street. The pay was decent, and he never caused any trouble, so she would always agree to watch him while his parents were out. "All right, here I come," Tyler yelled. Chrissy was trying to be as still as possible as to not make much noise as she heard Tyler run by towards the living room. "Chrissy, you're not very good at this game," Tyler said, stifling a laugh. "I can see your feet." Chrissy's heart instantly dropped into her stomach. Had she forgotten to lock the door behind Tyler's parents? She wasn't 100% sure, but before she could react, she heard a dull thud hit the floor in the living room, and then, as if trying to mimic Tyler's voice, she heard someone call out, "Ollie, Ollie, oxen free!" Answering Machine by Evan the Nerd 83. I can't get a hold of my girlfriend. It doesn't matter how many times I try to call her. She never picks up. All I get is an answering machine, and her voice giggling the same thing over and over again. "I'm not home right now." This afternoon, I had left work early and called her to tell her that I was swinging by her apartment. The phone rang once, twice, thrice. I was just about to hang up when someone answered it. "She's not home right now." My voice came from the other end of the line, as clear as day and as cold as night. I instantly hung up. There's Something Wrong with My Reflection by Gluten-Free Sadness. I grope my face, pulling at the skin and twisting my hair. The image in front of me does the same, but its motions are off. I can't explain it. Maybe there is some delay? No, that's not it. It mimics me with perfect synchronicity. Are the eyes different? Yes, that must be it. It must. But wait. No, its eyes are the same shade of brown I have always had. They aren't shaped differently either. I try to remember what I had just seen. I could have sworn the eyes were darker, the pupils more square. But they aren't anymore. Or maybe they never were. Then maybe it's the lips. But wait, just a moment ago, I could have sworn they were a deeper shade of red. Now they look perfectly normal, save for that devilish smile they were curled into. Wait, that's it. This thing standing in my mirror, pretending to be my reflection, is smiling. I figured it out. You can't fool me, you tricky devil. Wait, now I am smiling. What if I was smiling before and just didn't realize it? Oh, Lord, I must look like a fool. I'll look closer. I must be sure. I must. If I just stand a little closer, lean in a little farther, I should be able to figure out what is wrong with the image in my mirror. Is its skin a little paler? Its ears a little longer? What is it? I'll go mad if I don't figure it out. I reach out to touch it. I can feel the chill emanating from the glass before my fingers touch it. But my fingers don't touch cold glass. Instead, warmth wraps around my hand. I don't even have time to truly process the warmth. Why is there warmth? I now stand in my bathroom, in front of my mirror. But everything is wrong. The bathtub is on my left, not my right where it should be. Everything is flipped. The only thing the same is the thing in the mirror. It is smiling now, and it nods its head, my head, at me. Then it kicks the mirror, and the one before me shatters. I do not know what happened. I do not know what that thing was. But as I turn around and leave the bathroom, I know why it happened. The rest of the house around the bathroom has crumbled. From the doorway, I can see the city, or what is left of it. Stranger Danger by Evan the Nerd, 83. Kids are always told to never wander off, and we keep warning them about speaking to grown-ups they do not know. But there are things far worse than a creep walking around in broad daylight, stalking such vulnerable lambs. They may look like your family, your friends, your classmates, teachers, the cheerful mailman, the kind neighbor. But they're not. Sunflower by 1001 Nights. Ryan hadn't quite realized his deep horror of sunflowers until the damn things became trendy on Instagram, and Kelly started insisting that they visit a local sunflower farm for selfies. After all, it is quite easy to go through life avoiding sunflowers. Ryan had childhood memories of them, wilting and musty at his mother's funeral. Later, he remembered a batch growing wild on a patch of earth close to school. They were so tall, their black and brown speckled heads nodding in the blinding sunlight, birds flapping around them, and those ugly yellow petals. Ryan hated them, hated walking by them, and was relieved when they moved to a sunflower-free place. Then he was able to forget the plant monsters and even his nightmares of them, brown and yellow, flapping and nodding, faded. Until now, Kelly was obsessed with social media. Ryan didn't mind and even started enjoying it, arranging his sushi on the plate just so before eating, stopping every so often for those all-important couple selfies, and joining her in reading comments and comparing the number of likes on different photos. But this was different. He didn't even know at first why he kept finding excuses not to visit the sunflower farm, until one day in early fall, Kelly said she'd planned it. They were going this Saturday, as it would be the last weekend of the season that the farm was open to the public. She said it in a tone that brooked no disagreement. And instantly, Ryan's childhood horror awakened, as intensely sharp as when he had to walk by them twice a day, trying to avoid the sight of their beastly speckled, seed-filled heads and flapping large petals. Saturday morning arrived too soon. Kelly looked stunning in a bright blue dress, and she fussed with Ryan's matching lighter blue casual-looking t-shirt. Blue will pop against the background. See, sweetie? And she showed her screen, displaying millions of pictures of grinning fools against the malign creatures. Ryan shuddered and turned away. As they drove closer to the farm, his misery grew deeper. The blobs of browny yellow against the dark green shone brighter, and their haunting, terrible smell hung in the crisp fall air. The crowd was unbelievable. Clearly, they were not the only ones hoping to catch the last sunflower picks of this season. The happy farmer took their cash and ushered them towards the field. Ryan felt he was suffocating. Kelly's voice came from a distance. "Here, what do you think, sweetheart?" The laughing, chattering crowd seemed to pull him away from her and deeper into the mass of sunflowers. He glimpsed Kelly, arranging her sun hat and skirt. Then she vanished from sight. The crowd melted. Ryan was alone, surrounded by the sunflowers, their seated dark heads towering over him, leaning down closer. Their petals brushed against his skin. He sank to the earth, screaming hysterically. The plants bent over him, covering him with green leaves and yellow petals, and he knew nothing more. Good for the Truth by Evan the Nerd, 83. The latest Alexa update proved quite controversial. By analyzing audio recordings, it was able to mimic any voice. It didn't matter the length. Minutes, seconds. The assistant could fully learn cadences, patterns of inflection, the way they sounded. And the primary targets of this function? Relatives and friends. More specifically and concerningly, the voices of dead relatives and friends. Not even those who were recently deceased. Nobody really agreed with what Amazon was doing. The typical backlash towards anything even remotely related with the company began. Online petitions, boycotts. Some hackers attacked the servers used for the device. Of course, like usual, the public didn't care. The update was released on schedule, and before long, viral videos popped up on various social media sites. Users recorded themselves reacting to Alexa's replications. Most would laugh, others would be crying. until other videos surfaced. These were far less jovial, less celebratory, and surprised. A few users asked Alexa questions only the person it was mimicking would know the answers to, like if they remembered what a family member was wearing on a particular day, or if they had run over a neighborhood cat, or if they had ever cheated. And Alexa would answer, but it wouldn't talk about the time Aunt Wednesday had worn a bright polka dot dress, or explain how Grandpa accidentally cut the local feline population down. It especially didn't indulge in gossip about whether or not Dad was secretly meeting up with his secretary after hours. It would only talk about certain things, the kind of secrets better kept, dirt left buried. Drug addiction, tax fraud, armed robbery, back alley operations carried out behind clinics or done at home. And that's not even the worst of it, not by a long shot. What was revealed would trigger nationwide criminal investigations. Many families found themselves shattered. Divorce statistics skyrocketed, as did rates of self-homicide. In the end, Amazon never did find out the cause of this glitch. A visit to a friend's house, author unknown. I ring the door, and she came to answer. Yay, you're here. Yeah, you invited me. Yeah, I'm glad I did. That's strange. She wasn't normally this excited to see me. Then again, she hasn't seen me in weeks because of her surgery, so it's not that weird. Please, come in. I have a surprise for you, she said, in a sing-song voice. This isn't like her. Is she drunk? I came in and she has a whole lavish plate of food out for me. Please, have a seat. I already prepared dinner. It's a bit early for dinner, but it looks great. She sits down and I see an awful scar going down each of her fingers, joining at the wrist, and going down her arm. Whoa, what are those? Oh, my surgery scars are so ugly. They go like this over everything. The doctor says they'll heal soon, so it's fine. The rest of the visit was great. We had burgers. Well, I had them. She wasn't hungry. We did deliberately bad karaoke. She did some crazy-ass death metal demon voice, singing Barbie Girl. It was perfect. But later in the day, she tripped on something, and the way she fell bent one of her finger bones 180 degrees. Oh my God! Ugh, that'll wake you up in the morning. Oh. I'll get the first aid kit. Should I call a doctor? I sprinted into her bedroom where I knew there was a first aid box. Wait, I'm fine. I don't need first aid. But by that point, I was already in there. As soon as I turned on the lights, I saw it. An entire skeleton's worth of bones, and a pile on the floor. I turned around, and she was suddenly right behind me. So close I could feel her breath on my face. Her finger was perfectly fine now. You shouldn't have done that. She put her arm on my shoulder, and it bent like rubber. I tried to run, but I bumped into something, and it scraped off a chunk of my stomach skin, falling onto her bedroom carpet. Since when was I so weak? I was hoping we could have prepared you more. Who's we? And prepared me for what? The food made you ripe for cutting. The karaoke let us all hear and mimic your voice. Now anyone can be you, at least for a second. I just wish we could have done more. You can come out now." Then she locked the door, and something clawed out from under her bed. It had the exact shape of a skeleton, only it was pure flesh. And it was exactly my height. Hannah, unknown author. Hannah woke up with a splitting headache. She couldn't feel a thing, and her head was throbbing. She saw a briefcase full of cash lying on the floor, and a dead woman with blood all around it. She freaked out and ran to the other room. There was another body lying face down on the ground. She turned it over to see it was her own body. She noticed the body had a bloody hammer in her hand. She couldn't understand what was happening when the body lying on the floor whispered, "On your back," and fell dead. She turned around and was hit at the back of her head. There was a mild cracking sound. She couldn't feel a thing, and her head was throbbing. Hannah fell off to sleep with a splitting headache. P.S. Now read the story backwards. Hannah fell off to sleep with a splitting headache. She couldn't feel a thing, and her head was throbbing. There was a mild cracking sound. She turned around and was hit at the back of her head. She couldn't understand what was happening when the body lying on the floor whispered, "On your back," and fell dead. She noticed the body had a bloody hammer in her hand. There was another body lying face down on the ground. She turned it over to see it was her own body. She freaked out and ran to the other room. She saw a briefcase full of cash lying on the floor and a dead woman with blood all around it. She couldn't feel a thing, and her head was throbbing. Hannah woke up with a splitting headache. Catfish by JTB 685. "So, where do you work?" asked James. Irene groaned. "Let's not do that." "Do what?" "Make boring small talk. Let's talk about something fun instead." "Like? Know any scary stories?" James tilted his head. "Scary stories?" "Yeah." "What's wrong? Nervous?" "No, it's just an unusual topic. I've never had a Tinder date ask me to tell a scary story before." "Hey, if you're too panicky..." "I'm not. I just didn't expect the subject to come up." Irene smiled. "I've got one. Have you heard about the skin dwellers?" "The monster thingies?" "Yeah. I heard Joe Rogan mention them on his podcast and got roasted on Twitter." "So you know about them?" "Not really. I know it's a weird conspiracy thing." "They're monsters that eat humans, then take their form." "So, shapeshifters?" "No." "But you said they take the form of humans." "Yeah, but they don't shapeshift." "How do they do it then?" "They wear your skin and mimic your voice." "You've lost me." "Well, they're like giant insects." "Supposedly." "Yeah, supposedly they're like giant insects. Picture a grasshopper with a humanish face." "Okay, so giant grasshoppers that morph into humans?" "No, they don't morph." "Then what do they do?" "They inject you with a venom that melts your insides, then suck them out." "Yikes." "And when you're an empty sack of skin, they climb through your mouth and wear you like a suit." Alex Jones said the FBI thinks there's 20,000 in the U.S. alone. If they're giant grasshoppers, how do they wear human skin? It would be all stretched out. You ever see spiders shedding, where they squeeze through a small incision, then stretch out, and they're bigger than you thought? Like that. Oh, okay. Then they hunt for others. They could wait in a dark alley, or create a Tinder account and go on a date. Like this one? Yeah, like this one. Is this the part where you tell me you're a skin dweller? Well, if you insist. Irene opened her mouth. It stretched wider and wider until the top half of her head flipped back. A giant grinning insect monster wiggled through the gap, then stretched out, its antenna scraping against the ceiling. The deflated sack of skin fell to the floor. The creature leaned close to James. Aren't you gonna scream? I don't believe this. James opened his mouth. It stretched wider and wider until the top half of his head flipped back. A giant grinning insect monster wiggled through the gap, then stretched out, its antenna scraping against the ceiling. Vanin? Yep, we catfished each other, Grok. Grok raised an appendage to its face. Well, this is embarrassing. No food for either of us, and I'm absolutely famished. Vanin's phone buzzed. It was a grinder notification. Hold on, I've got a live one, and he's big enough to share. Let me see. Oh, he looks delicious. Drool dripped from Grok's mandibles. Invite him over. Okay. Put your skin back on. We'll say you're my sister or something. If you're reading this, it's too late. I can hardly remember the day he took me. It seemed so long ago, further than a distant memory. I was barely a teen, old enough to walk home alone, too young to know the dangers of the world. Within the blink of an eye, I became a poster child, an addition to the missing section on the ad pages. At first, he would bring me the papers every day, so I could see the frantic attempts people were making to find me, the unsuccessful pleas from my parents for my safe return. He never showed any emotion in those first weeks. The hope I had of being found safe were kept alive. As the news articles stopped and the searches ran cold, a sick smile formed across his face. He wasn't showing me these articles to give me hope. No, he wanted to make it clear when there was no hope left. The day I broke and all hope was lost was the day he spoke. He told me his background, how he was a surgeon, until his makeshift home surgery was uncovered by his wife. She, horrified by her discovery, ran through the house to call the police. He never meant to kill her. Inconsolable, he made his way upstairs. There, he dealt his daughter the same fate. He couldn't stand the thought of her finding her mother like that. He couldn't allow her to suffer through such horror. He missed them both so much. With his skills, he could fill this void himself. He began taking people from the street, regardless of age, sex, or ethnicity. He only needed parts from each person, anyway, of course. He was good at it, too. I could hear her shuffling around in the other room, his first creation. She used to scream continuously until he removed the tongue and jaw he had given her. When he began working on me, I screamed until I passed out. But, coming to and seeing his handiwork, I soon understood. This was for my own benefit. He was making me better. He's stopped working on her now. I showed much more promise and an eagerness he hadn't seen before. I managed to stay awake as he flayed the flesh from my arms, cutting out the tendons and bothersome nerve endings that make me feel. He's a true artist. He's too old to acquire new parts now. That's where I come in. I stalk the internet for people online, distracted reading this fiction as I close in, assuming they're safe behind their screens. You're not. I need to please him. If he wants you, he's going to get you. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your overwhelming generosity. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness and Twitter at duchessofdark_n2. I want to thank all my listeners for your kindness, your encouragement, and your support. It means the world to me. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.